but it follows the guidelines of the Simpson-Bowles Commission. This was a debt commission that was empowered by this president that neither party has wanted to follow. And it says in their preamble of their report that this country is going to suffer serious financial catastrophe if we don't do something about our debt and our deficit. And nobody wants to pay attention to that. We can't even get the media to pay attention to it, let alone the politicians in D.C. or the man in the White House. So what I've done is I've said, if I'm going to go back to my constituency, I want to let them know that I'm at least taking the initiative to file what I believe are some good recommendations. Simplify the tax system, make it fairer, but more importantly, freeze the spending that we're at right now, not only in the White House, not only in Congress, but also with all federal agencies. Let's develop a system by which we can understand what it's going to take to raise the revenues necessary to meet the expenses so that the expenses are not in excess of the revenues. And that's what this plan does. I think that it could be a great vehicle to be used as we talk about tax reform, as we talk about tax simplification, as we talk about protecting the hard working taxpayers of this country.
Now, you voted against the fiscal cliff
Yes.
compromise, I would call it. Moving forward to the debt ceiling, this is, people are saying it's gearing up to be a big slugfest. First of all, do you think it's going to go that far? Is you think the president's going to entertain these negotiations, or is he going to pretty much push back? Where do you stand on that, on raising it?
In August of 2011, we were in a position of having to raise the debt ceiling again. At that time, we had a lot of the financial rating agencies come speak to us as members of Congress collectively and individually. Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and others who said, if you don't have some systemic plan in place to reduce your debt, your long-term debt, we're going to have to downgrade your credit rating. It wasn't because we were having a protracted debate on whether we should raise the debt ceiling. It was the fact that we had nothing in place to reduce the viral spending that we've had in this country for the last 20, 30 years. They lowered our credit rating. They say they're going to do it again. And yet we still don't seem to get the message that the whole key to this is spending. And this president has said we don't have a spending problem and says that I'm not going to negotiate spending cuts for an increase of the debt ceiling, to me is absurd. Look, we have to uphold our obligations. There's no question about that. But we also have to live within our means. We don't have the luxury as an individual that our country does, that when we reach our credit card limit, that we can unilaterally raise our credit limit. Unfortunately, our government, our president, think that that's all it takes and we don't have to control our spending. We have to have spending cuts if we're going to entertain the increase in our debt ceiling. And if we don't entertain the increase in the debt ceiling, we're going to have some pretty rough roads ahead. Unfortunately, what you're going to see as pawns in this process are going to be the Social Security recipients, the men and women who are serving in our armed forces, and the veterans that are receiving benefits, because they're going to put those into play and say, well, you're going to shut these people down? Are you not going to pay our active duty military? Are you going to not allow for the Social Security checks to go out? That's not what it's about. We take in enough revenues to pay that. But maybe we should look at the duplication that we have in government programs that the GAO reported last year, that 20% of those programs are duplicative. We could save $700 billion just right there. We can make these cuts. And unfortunately, we're not even having the discussion on the cuts. This president wants to foreclose any discussion on whether we should have cuts and unilaterally raise the debt ceiling and say, move on.